with inspired.
How did the involvement with David Bowie come about?
Well, he sort of seems to be in New York, right? I love it, you know, all the rockers come and say, hey, what's happening, you know.
I think people will remember David Bowie for his fearlessness.
David Bowie walks by me. And like you, I love those records. There's not one thing wrong with those records.
A week later, I get an email from David Bowie. I remember it was his birthday was 8th of January, and on his, I think it was 57th birthday, I sent him an email, happy birthday. I thought, 57? Isn't it about time you got a proper job? Ricky Gervais, comedian, 42, right? He sent back, I've got a proper job. David Bowie, rock star, 57.
Today we're joined by the Smoking Cobras. Lead singer, guitar, Dean Simone. Drums, Kevin McShane. Bass vocals, Tony Russell. Lead guitar vocals, Ed Beardsley. Welcome, gentlemen. And thank
Cobras.
you, of course, you know, what is it? This is YUH147 with Lisa, Phil, and Aaron.
It's our annual check-in with the Cobras here.
Right, it's your Cobra chat. Good to be here, guys.
Yes,
Good
to have you. Yeah.
Okay.
Um,
Now we are up to date on Dean and his series Winning Time, which unfortunately has been announced as canceled.
Canceled.
You never know.
Yeah.
Maybe it's. I mean, it's HBO, so we haven't had a chance to actually watch it ourselves.
yeah.
As a
Well, let me clarify. I did start to watch it.
yeah.
Like last week, I was like, I can get this series in before the Cobras come on, and so I can talk about it. And I watched about 3 or 4 episodes, and it was good, but it was in that like docu-series style of drama, you know, storytelling that sometimes works. In this instance, there's a little bit, you know, there's some great actors like John C. Reilly, Adrian Brody, the guys who
Dean
played Dean Simone, of course.
Keep this kid in line now. Pat Riley. You see Kareem out there last night? Check out.
Un-American, Bolshevik, Jerry Buss, you, sir, are an unfit owner, a disgrace to sports, and you deserve everything you got coming to you.
Why are you still reading that shit?
It's not shit. It's Jim Murray.
So I wound up fast forwarding. I found out I cheated. I found out what Dean's scene was. So I fast forwarded to that episode and saw, you know, at least one of his scenes.
Yeah, there was just one. That was my intro.
Okay.
That sucks.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah.
And then my agent just posted a few days ago, you know, it sucks being an agent. My you know, Dean got a recurring role on this show and then it got canceled, but I don't care. I'm in Dumb Money too. I'm playing a congressman in that, but I haven't seen it, so I don't know how much of it I'm still in. It was a nice little scene with me grilling Paul Dano. But
Is that a show or a movie?
It's a movie. It's a movie
Okay.
about the GameStop.
Oh, okay.
The whole GameStop.
Oh, yeah. We're gonna go see that.
I want to see that.
Let me know if I'm in it. I'm supposed to.
Okay.
I'm credited, and
Well,
I did.
people cut. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Good
we'll
in there.
see. That's the new one on the docket. But
Now,
yeah,
who you play in that?
I play a congressman, a fictitious congressman who's basically grilling Paul Dano. Because at those times, those hearings were done remotely because of COVID. So remote scene, and I really don't know how it came out. I mean, we'll see. It's getting pretty good reviews, and it's the same director who did I, Tonya. So that was pretty celebrated. It's a great cast. I mean, Seth Rogen and Vincent D'Onofrio and Pete Davidson. I mean, there's a ton of people, and Dano is fantastic. So we'll see. Hopefully, you know, you never know. That's the fun of Hollywood.
Yep.
That's what's good about being in a band. You never get
Yeah,
you're never on the editing room floor. So
if it wasn't for this podcast, we'd be at Dumb Money right now.
there you go. So
It's
say
your
that if
fault.
you're going in, I'm not in it. Just say, hey, what's up? Get Dean in this. Let's go. Let's get the edits.
Yeah, right.
Time to
Re-edit the
recut this flick.
movie. You know, the directorial release,
That's right.
director's cut.
Director's cut. Exactly.
Right.
Well, thank you for having us to do Scary Monsters, Super Creeps. God, it is just you guys. This is my second time on and doing the record reviews, and the last one was the Plastic Ono Band, which is my #1 favorite record, and this and Ziggy Stardust are probably 1 and 2 for me. So I'm really glad to be on it, and I know the guys are too, and we appreciate you guys having us.
Yeah.
Sure.
Did everybody get a
Thanks for
chance?
coming.
Is everybody familiar with the album, or everybody?
Got to at least to
chance
listen to
to-
it once.
Yeah.
I listened to it some, yeah.
Yeah.
Of course.
Right.
I grew up with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Imagine so. I mean, that's like for me, I was really into music when I was a kid, and then something happened when I got married, and music just it was kind of put on the back burner. And
You
I'm
got
not
confused,
blaming.
and you became
I
obsessed.
became a geek, yeah. But so there's so many like classic albums that I know, the hits and things from. Like I know Fashion, and I know Ashes to Ashes from this, but the remainder of the album I was not that familiar with.
I'll
So-
tell you, as a kid, Philip had a Commodore 64 as a teen. And the next computer he owned was the one we bought in 1994, brand new, as our a wedding present, I guess. And 3 weeks after we bought the computer, on time, mind you, I come home and Philip says, don't stop. And I'm like, I look around and the computer is completely disassembled.
What?
Yeah, he took it apart.
Right. Disassemble
So
it, put it back
I
together.
married a medical records temp, and I scored an IT professional.
There you go.
There you go.
That's
It's all-
Mr. Ed's heart. That's Ed's workshop back there, man. Ed's always putting things together and taking them apart, right, Ed?
Yeah.
What was the deal with those chords you were talking about at the last gig?
We'll talk off the air about that, but
Okay.
I don't want, but they're on the way back to me. So
Okay.
yeah.
Well, okay? So when we do these, we generally do a very brief kind of rundown of Bowie, a little biography of Bowie from the top, but we try not to consume too much time. But I'll start it off, and then if you guys have some things to add or some fun facts or something like that you want to add, and you can just jump in. And I'll try to give you an opportunity to. But born January 8th, 1947 in Brixton, England. I guess one of the things, the main things of his youth was a consciousness of schizophrenia or mental illness in his family, and it was exacerbated by the fact that his family kind of lived through the Blitz, the German Blitz, and during World War II, and his brother actually did develop or had schizophrenia, and that sort of was always ever present on his mind with his songwriting and even his music. It's got a consciousness of that, it seems. Saxophone was Bowie's first instrument. Here's a fun fact: when he was a child, he got loose at an event and actually ran up to the Queen, and the Queen reached down and patted him on the head or something like that, and a picture was taken by the Yorkshire newspaper that was never really uncovered since then. You can't go online and find it, but
I'd love to see that, man.
yeah, if you ever run across something like that, then let's see. He went through different phases of his career. We're definitely in the maybe the third wave of his career. First, he had the Ziggy Stardust era, where Ziggy Stardust and Spiders from Mars. Then he kind of moved along to the Thin White Duke era, which was kind of noted by 3 albums that he did.
Is the Berlin trilogy?
Yeah,
Berlin
the Berlin trilogy.
yes.
Low, Lodger, and
Station to Station. No,
Station.
Yeah, station to station, low and larger.
Yeah, sounds right.
Yeah,
Right. In that era, he was that was kind of a controversial era because the character itself was seemed to dally with fascism and darker themes. And he was like, throughout Bowie's career, he did explore darker themes. Like he was curious with Aleister Crowley and that type of thing, and Nazi symbolism.
Wasn't he like strung out on heroin during the Berlin trilogy too?
I believe probably so.
And Coke too. Yeah, he was.
And he was hanging out with Brian Eno.
Exactly.
and Lou Reed and Iggy Pop.
Yeah.
Enough said about the drugs and the alcohol right there, man, for sure.
I think didn't him and Iggy Pop, didn't they kind of get clean together at some point?
Yeah, I mean, supposedly that
probably
was,
around the time of Scary Monsters.
Right.
That was coming right off of that. Same producers, some of the same people, except that Adrian Belew was on those, and he was supposed to be on Scary Monsters, but he ended up he was paid to be on Scary Monsters, and then he just ended up not being on it. They just went ahead and recorded it without him.
Mm-hmm. Well, so Bowie, he was kind of caught up in the LA machinery, right? I mean, he felt like he needed to get away from Los Angeles in order to kind of shake his habit. And I believe he may have went to Jamaica or something for a while, and then eventually,
let's go to Jamaica to avoid drugs.
That's a very good point. That's a very good point. Maybe he went back to England. I don't know.
All the flights to Amsterdam were booked, so Jamaica was the.
Yeah, right.
Right.
Well, I mean, if you're on everything else, just going to the pop capital of the world is probably practically detox.
Right. That's true. That's true, Lisa.
Yeah, that would probably be a step down for sure. That would probably help him to some extent. But there's other things. There were figures in his life like Coco, which is his personal assistant, that seemed to cause some friction between him and his wife Angela, and eventually their marriage kind of dissolved. And there are all kinds of anecdotes in his life, but we're kind of down to the point, I guess, where they went to the power station in New York in the spring of 1980 and recorded Scary Monsters Super Creeps. And the players on the album were Bowie on vocals, Carlos Alomar, lead rhythm guitar, Dennis Davis, George Murray, Chuck Hammer on synthesizers. I feel like he played a really important role. Aaron mentioned Robert Fripp, Roy Bitton, I'm not sure, on piano.
Guy from the E Street Band, right?
He's from the E Street Band, yeah, exactly, because they were like in the same studio, and he had worked with Bowie earlier. But Fripp is really the main guitar influence on this. Hammer was like a synth guitar guy that got started playing with Lou Reed, but Fripp is really the fingerprint.
He shreds on this album.
He does.
On every album.
On every album, yeah. He's a monster. Yeah. The other guys were session guys, and they had been with Bowie before. Fripp he's all over this.
Right. We should say Pete Townsend makes a cameo on Because You're Young.
Did you hear that story? Well, we can talk about it when we talk about Because You're Young, but I guess he showed up cranky, and it's like, why the fuck am I here? and they were like, well, we wanted you to be on it. And he was like really annoyed about being there. And I think he's on it, but buried way in the back of it, man. So imagine Pete Townsend being grumpy. It's hard to believe. Right.
That never happens. The number of destroyed guitars in his wake are just like,
right,
enough to fill a room.
Tax write-offs.
Right, tax write-offs. Okay, Tony Visconti was on acoustic guitar. Was he the producer?
He was the producer, yeah.
He's a co-producer. Yeah,
co-producer, and produced a lot of stuff all the way up to Black Star. he's kind of been his right hand man, and he was really there in that whole scene with also with Mark Bolan, and he worked with Morrissey. He's worked with so many people. Like Visconti started out as a bass player, right, Tony? And then
I don't
He
know.
did.
He
Yeah.
did. I don't know his background. Yeah.
he was a bassist in that kind of that glam scene. He's American, but he sort of made his bones over in England.
A New York guy or something. He was like a New York.
Yeah, he was from New York.
Guy.
He kind of like was one of those people like Hendrix who went to London and kind of made his way there. I know way too much about this stuff. I have no idea. I know all about them. I got their baseball cards.
So I don't want to put anybody on the spot, but I think a good way to kind of, give every individual of our panel here their limelight is to let them open the discussion. Usually we go track by track. First track will be It's No Game.
What's the shadows? What's the revolution? One more. Please go to heaven. It's no
Maybe Tony, maybe you could give us some impressions of that.
That's the first track on the album. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. I think the first time I heard Scary Monsters, because that album came out when I was about 8 years old. And I heard it through this friend of mine, Randy, and I really liked the rhythm section a lot. So I think I was maybe about 14. So the rhythm section on the whole album they're called DAM, the acronym, Davis, Alomar, and George Murray, the bassist, who's actually one of my favorite bassists and had a big influence on me and my approach. Mm-hmm. So I did want to mention those guys. They played on about 6 albums, and that was the last album they played on. Alomar went on to do Let's Dance and all that stuff.
Okay.
But yeah, they're
he's
really
done more tracks than any other musician. He's played more for Bowie than anybody. Yeah,
they're an amazing rhythm section, and I really like them a lot. And like, not enough is said about George Murray. I think he works for a school now in San Diego or something.
Really?
Yeah, I was reading about him, but he was a huge influence. And I never even knew what the guy looked like, actually, because back then there was no internet and they didn't have pictures of him on the album. But I saw like stuff of him when he was on Saturday Night Live.
What's he look like?
He's like a real tall black gentleman, and he's a African American guy. And I don't know if Davis is from the States, but I know anyhow he's like a tall, skinny guy, and he's an awesome player. And I really like this
dude too. I know he was he was definitely getting like a lot of went out of his way, I think, to make sure that he was getting these black rhythm sections that were so hot in New York.
Really hot. Sick. They're really, really good. And the cool thing is, like, they play rock with that's what I liked about it, because it was like a rock with a little bit of a funk and R&B flair, and that's kind of the stuff that I like. So I was like, wow, that's pretty cool. Right. Anyhow, that first track, sorry for that, I just wanted to mention the rhythm section.
No, that's great.
Yeah.
But the first track, I just remember I thought the track was so unique, and then also the Japanese woman at the end, like, speaking at the track. I remember at first I was like, and at first I thought it was Yoko Ono.
Nishi Rhoda.
Yeah, right. So,
an actress, right?
But yeah, it's an interesting way to open an album.
She was in The King and I.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yeah. And they brought her down. She was going out with somebody in the band.
Okay.
And that was a late add-on.
But I like the way they opened the album, and I know that was Bowie's, because he did that Berlin trilogy, which wasn't that successful commercially, but Bowie really didn't care about that stuff. But then obviously you got to pay the bills at some point, so he said, I want to do like a commercial album again, and that's his first stab at a commercial album. But like, he never lost his art side as an artist. So it's funny, it's interesting, it's like a transition album, and it's also the album before Let's Dance, which was a huge commercial hit.
Right.
But it's kind of interesting. So I like the way he opened the album, like he still wanted to keep that artistic flair to it. And so instead, like he could have opened with one of the tracks that was a bigger, but that's classic Bowie. Just like when he came out with Tin Machine in the late 80s too, with the Soupy Sales Sons.
Hunt Sales. And,
yeah, like the same
Sales
thing.
brother.
Yeah, he went on the Arsenio Hall and like everybody thought he played, you know, like the biggest hit, and he played like some random hit, which was pretty cool. Not a hit, rather. Yeah, so that's a great track.
Well, Aaron, didn't your son, that you were going to refer to him or
Yeah, I ended up going to Google Translate. He was busy.
okay.
Oh, your son speaks Japanese?
It's a loose interpretation of the lyrics.
He taught
right?
himself
It's not
Japanese.
Yeah.
It's not right on, right, man?
Yeah, it's like silhouettes and shadows are revolutions, and the stairs of heaven's freedom are broken inside, locked out of reality, and I don't know what's going on. It's like, you know,
Oh, and
kind of
she's
right
saying
there.
that
but-
in Japanese?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's,
that's
what she's
interesting.
saying.
Where are the lessons? The people's fingers are covered with traces of dictatorship hidden in the cars. It's sad.
Reagan.
Wow.
It's
Naaman's record movie. I think that means documentary. The lovers who made a target.
Yeah.
If you throw a doctor on the road, it will shatter into pieces. It kept saying doctor and not rock.
That's rock. That's odd.
Maybe she misunderstood. Maybe she thought he was saying doc.
Yeah.
If
Hey,
you
lost
put the
in
lid on the
translation.
function, you will get huge wealth. If you hit the head of an Oro, it will stir up the newspaper.
Put a bullet in my brain and it makes all the papers.
All the papers,
That's
yeah.
translation.
Huh.
Yeah, you know, I did read that they by the way, there's a great book on this album that just came out called Silhouettes and Shadows, the untold history of David Bowie's Scary Monsters, and it's both. I heard the guy interviewed. It's really interesting, but he was talking about that, and apparently they said to her, "We want you to sound like a man." So they said, "We want you to talk with the like the way they put it was like an aggressive suit man, you know," and that was her interpretation of sort of, you know,
The pronoun she used, if you hit the head of an Oro, that's like a masculine
pronoun.
I.
Oh, interesting.
Okay. That's that.
Yeah, I'd heard something, and then Bowie's, by contrast, the falsetto that he uses in this song, you know.
Yeah.
Oh,
it's
wow.
like
They were
roller
ahead of the game, right?
You know, it's a cool song, man. I mean, it's really it's about revolution and the futility of revolution, and don't forget, when Bowie made this, he had just gotten over a divorce. He just freshly got divorced, got custody of Duncan, and he was starting rehearsals for the Elephant Man. So it was
Forgot about the Elephant Man. Yeah.
Yeah, he was like, this was a massive change in his life, and he was going through a lot of personal upheaval too. But I mean, I think It's No Game is like that opening track is just it's great choice. I agree with Tony. He could have picked maybe one of the poppier songs. Started with Ashes to Ashes, which I love, but I mean, he kind of, but it's cool. He started it with that and he ended it with that. So it was
Right.
Yeah.
Like a bookmark.
It seems like it was, to me, it's the lyrics at least were kind of a rejection of the times. Like the album in context of like the Reagan Iran hostage situation. You know, Reagan kind of ran on morals to an extent, and Bowie sees a lot of fascism in society in the way that the politics, I guess. He even says in this, to be insulted by these fascists, draw the blinds in yesterday, and it all seems so much scarier. Just the fear of refugees, kind of the hysteria. I felt like the Japanese part of it was sort of the insinuation, maybe. The jingoism, I guess. We keep reusing that word, but I thought it was really, profound, and that it had its tentacles in the time. But it sounds very modern.
It still does.
Yeah, it comes across.
So-
It definitely holds up.
Dean, me, and Phil all ranked the songs 1 to 10. I don't know if Kev and Ed and Tony did the rankings. It doesn't much matter, but Phil ranked
I don't
this song
rank
number
music.
2, and Dean and I both ranked it number 3, part 1 of It's No Game.
I
And
guess I
think
don't
it's
really.
number 2 on mine.
What'd you say, Kevin?
I said I don't rank music.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah,
Not
because,
everybody
like,
does. Not
We've
everybody
had
does.
guests who refused to rank before too.
Well, the
Yeah.
problem
It's
is
just a
like,
little.
it's
It's the American have to keep score kind of thing we got
yeah.
going on.
I can find something good in everything that I, you know, live.
Oh yeah.
I
And,
get it.
This was one of the toughest albums to rank because everything's just so close. I could have flipped, about 8 of these songs around, and in fact did in the course of it.
No,
You know,
that's
it's definitely David Bowie. You can really hear it throughout the whole album.
right. I agree, Ed, except for the 10th. My least favorite track is a Tom Verlaine track, and I never knew that. I just never, I love every song on the album, but I have to say, I don't like Kingdom Come, and that was dead last for me. And I didn't like the writing on it.
We both had that dead last, I think. No, I had Kingdom Come 9, Because You're Young 10 was mine.
That's funny because You're Young. I really like that. That was up there for me. I think Because You're Young was like around 5 or in around that area. Yeah, 5 for me.
Yeah, I really liked Teenage Wildlife as well.
Yeah.
I agree, Ed. I thought that was a great song.
I told Phil I had that in the running for my number 1, and it ended up number 5, just telling you how close and flip-floppy I was on these.
Yeah.
It's hard to pick.
Check that when you submitted. When I saw your rankings, I was like, I thought he was going to have that number 1. But
I had that as 4. Definitely like really close to Heroes, man.
One more thing on It's No Game is the screaming, especially since the last album we did was Plastic Ono Band with Dean. There's a lot of screaming and kind of scream therapy, and a song even called Scream Like a Baby.
Right.
So this is really in that same vein.
Yeah, Janoff, right?
Scream
therapist guy.
I've come to know his son, who's actually been to some of our shows. His girlfriend and I are old friends, and so I've gotten to meet. He's a musician himself, and that guy had influences on a lot of people, man.
Did you scream with him?
I did not.
Huh.
Let's scream together, man.
Let's get together and scream.
I was at a gig, so we have to scream at gigs a lot of times.
It's true.
Well, Lennon and Bowie were friends, right? I mean, they're pretty good friends.
Yeah.
So I'm sure they scream together occasionally.
Well, I think it's in Bowie. I think Lennon only wrote songs with other than McCartney. There was only 2 other people he ever collaborated with. One was Harry Nilsson, and the other one was Bowie on Fame.
Fame,
yeah.
So Bowie had a song called Fame, a song called Fashion, and a song called Fashion and Fame, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I didn't know. That's funny, man. Well, we know he definitely cared for that.
Things freeze, huh?
Yeah. But I do think, to Lisa's point, I do think that It's No Game is relevant today as it was back then. To be insulted by these fascists is so degrading. Yeah, it's still going.
Yeah.
Every line of these songs.
It's like Trump and Reagan. They could be the bookends of this.
Yeah.
Hopefully, end is the operative word.
Well,
The number 2 has an extra
personal.
verse, right, about smearing shit on the walls.
yeah.
What were you
Children
saying?
of the world put camel shit on the walls.
Yeah.
Talking about child labor. Oh God, that's what they're. He said.
Yeah.
So I mean, I think the whole album has an undertone of fascism is throughout the record.
Right.
And this
It does
one,
come
as
up
opposed to
again.
the Berlin trilogy, he wrote the lyrics ahead of time. I think Berlin trilogy just kind of almost improvised them.
Right. Yep.
I think that whole trilogy was improvised. I mean, that was the basis of the whole 3 albums, actually.
And Low, like a big part of the Low is instrumental.
Mhm.
I actually read an interview with Adrian Belew about doing the Berlin trilogy, and he said that Brian Eno and David Bowie were like in another room with a TV camera on the different musicians making the record, and then they wouldn't let them hear anything or even tell them the guys figuring out how to play the song in the middle of it. And they just took little bits and pieces of that they liked. And that's what became those records.
Really?
That's
it was interesting. It was
I've heard that being done before.
Yeah. Well,
that's kind of like the Beatles thing in the Get Back doc, you know. And you can see the evolution of Get Back, you know, the way they.
I know, that was amazing. See him actually
the spot.
Bowie poached Ballou from Frank Zappa. I think at the meeting where he was hiring him away, Zappa turned up at the restaurant at the end of the day and said, "Oh, this is going on, huh? I see."
I didn't know that. I just watched
Kevin's a huge Zappa guy.
Yeah, I just watched an interview with Steve Vai, and he said the closest he ever had to a mental breakdown when he was playing for Frank Zappa.
Yeah,
I believe it.
I believe it.
The intensity of it, right?
Yeah, we did a Zappa album. We did the Steve Vai album.
We did a Vai album too.
Oh, which one did you guys do?
Yeah, we were talking about the Vai album.
The one with Dion.
The Zappa album was One Size Fits All, and the Vai album was it Sex and Religion?
His first solo album.
Yeah.
The first one was lyrics.
We was talking about Frank told him that if he couldn't hit a certain chord, it was a difficult chord, he might as well go play for Linda Ronstadt.
I heard that quote. Yeah.
Wouldn't that make him one of the Eagles?
Yeah,
I was going to say, but Waddy Wattel ended up at that gig, and Linda
Ronstadt. That's a good gig.
Well, okay, so let's move on to the next track here. So we'll try to move it along a little bit. Up the Hill Backwards.
It's got nothing to do with you if one can grasp it. It's got nothing to do with you if one can grasp it. Yeah. Up the hill backwards, you'll be alright.
So Ed, what's your impressions of that one?
Well, it's a shorter song. Interesting guitar lead at the end. It's kind of dissonant sounding, you know, you can't quite get it to fit in there. It's kind of the vein of David Bowie anyway. He's a little less organized and a little more from the heart. And this song it's decent. I mean, it's got a political tone to it, you know, whenever he talks about freedom, you know, and possibilities it seems to offer, and you know, that type of thing. I think he's got it here. It's a good tune.
Yeah,
I like the "I'm okay, you're so." Ooh.
Yeah,
that's the funniest line, man. Yeah, I agree. I agree with what Ed said, and musically, it starts out in 7/4 time, which is generally like Middle Eastern Greek type of music. So it's interesting. And to what Ed was saying, another Fripp, another great Fripp signature on that song. You know, it's just so good. But
something I wanted to mention about the outro of the first song too was at the end. I think it probably inspired Guns N' Roses and Primus both. At the end of "It's No Game," that
what part, Aaron?
Shut up.
Yeah, well, the "shut up" is Los Bastardos on Primus. Shut up, you bastards!
Oh, yeah,
and the actual melody that Fripp's playing, it sounds like Slash took that and turned it into "Sweet Child of Mine."
Oh my God, dude, you're right.
Oh yeah,
that
it's a kind of
really
trip.
Similar to that.
Well,
Wow.
I want to say on Up the Hill Backward, initially I heard Wham.
Wow.
Yeah, that beat is like an interesting throughout the song.
Yeah.
And then it kind of like flows into hippie land.
Yeah.
That one grew on me. By the fourth listen or so,
Yeah.
that one grew. That went up in my estimation, in my rankings. Up the Hill Backwards.
I feel like Wham might have sampled that beginning.
They may have.
Yeah, it's a very danceable groove.
They could have, and you know, to the point.
Although they were around the same time, weren't they?
Yeah.
Boy, do I feel old.
This was 80. Wham really started kicking in around, I guess, what, 82?
Mid-80s.
82. Yeah. Well, George Michael was doing a lot of stuff. Yeah, but 82 this, but by mid 80s.
Okay.
Well, you know, the
No,
line
that's me.
Yeah, and the line that Ed was talking about the possibility of freedom, that is like from that's like Dada philosophy. Like there was a book that was written called like art and something about art, art and anti-art. But anyway, he was
Dada
really
movement. Yeah.
Yeah, he was into that, and that's talking a lot about that. I think it's a great track. The thing I dug about it the most was the way that the rhythm changed like that. I always thought it was pretty cool. And again, I can't say enough how much I love Robert Fripp's contribution to it. I just think the record is as much a Fripp record as it is a Bowie record. It's another just great track by the guy, man. He's fantastic.
It doesn't surprise me that Bowie liked
Pixies. You're talking about the Pixies.
Right, the Pixies. It doesn't surprise me that Bowie loves the Pixies because he's quoted, he loves the Pixies, and I can hear it in songs like this one where, it's like very textured, very, I don't want to say noisy, but there's a lot of exotic noise to it, and then all of a sudden a melody kind of surfaces out of it, and then it, it's sophisticated musically, And
the Pixies are
very
awesome.
much like
Boston's finest, man. Here Comes Your Man. That's like they're great, man. Pixies are awesome.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure what the year when they really kicked in. They're they really started
later 80s,
later 80s. Yeah, so this is sort of pre that, but he certainly.
But when they came out, he was like their biggest supporter.
Sure.
Yeah, he was an advocate, definitely.
They're great, and they're a great band for sure. But that's a great second track, and again, to Tony's point, he started off both those two tracks that it started off with. Neither one of them really were in the pantheon of like what could have been the hits on the record. So I mean, it was sort of interesting. Then when you get to actually the title track, the third one, I don't know. What did you guys think of that?
She began to wail, Genesis screams, waiting with the lights, low without me. Scary monsters, super creeps, keeps me running, running scared. Scary monsters, super creeps, keeps me running, running scared. To run.
Moving on to the third track. Fear always comes up in Bowie's music. I think of like I'm Afraid of Americans, Space Oddity has elements of fear in it. There's always that's kind of what I think.
Plenty of fear of the aliens in Ziggy Stardust.
Right. That's kind of calls back to what I was talking about. Where mental health seems to be something that's ever present on his mind,
Because of his
I feel like
I love the bass in Ashes to Ashes, though.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Can't go wrong with that.
But I know we'll get to that one. But the Roy Bittan piano part, really interesting how they came to that too. But I know we're with Scary Monsters. One thing that I wanted to say about it is there's some really cool production things that exist on it, like the hi-hat keeps panning left to right. And it sounds like he may even have recorded a second hi-hat. At first I thought it was on the ride, but I don't think it is. And it almost makes it sound like a steam engine where it's going. Tss, tss. I mean, there's so many really super cool, subtle things on it. And Fripp is amazing in it. And I mean, to me, to write a song like that about it, like it's basically like we've all dated or hopefully not married that person, but we've all been involved with somebody like that and involved in a relationship like that. And to me, the music completely supports the emotional aspect of what he's talking about with the lyrics. I love this song. I love that. Yeah.
So I ranked Scary Monsters #1. Dean ranked it #2. Phil ranked it #3.
Yeah.
I'd rank it #2.
You rank it too, Ed?
Yeah.
What do you think of the guitar stuff on it, man?
It was good, but that bass, that thumping bass, real staccato,
Yeah.
all the way through. It was really interesting.
You liked it?
Yeah.
I like the Cockney accent too.
The overdone Cockney accent. It was
Yeah, exactly.
man. She began to wail. It's hilarious, man.
Well, that's one thing about Bowie.
He was about extremes.
Oh yeah.
To me.
But Bowie, the thing about Bowie too is like, one thing I noticed about a lot of his music is he always takes a lot of risks. And I will say that if you listen to that track, Scary Monsters, which I love, it's probably my first or second favorite track on the album. But you'll notice that like a lot of music that comes after that that's really kind of starts that sort of new wave. Like Ed mentioned, that kind of staccato thumping bass. But you'll hear that in a lot of new wave. If you go like into Blondie and Duran Duran and all these kind of bands that come out of that, you'll notice that Bowie he'll do it first. Because he just takes a stab at a lot of things. You know, he's like, hey, I'll try this, I'll do this, this. And I think he just does it because he wants for the artistry of it. He just enjoys it.
Yep.
But a lot of people will pick up on things, or even if you listen to the album Let's Dance, like music from that point on, they use that same kind of feel. A lot of bands borrow from it.
He's a trendmonger.
He is. He's definitely like with the new wave movement and Scary Monsters, you can hear a lot, especially a lot of the production too. Production of tones as well, like certain bass tones or guitar tones or synth sounds. A lot of people borrow that. Yeah, the drum tones too.
He tended to reinvent himself.
Always.
A lot.
Yeah.
Always, yeah.
It's
similar to Madonna.
It's amazing the number of people. This is the number of artists
I'm sure
that cite
she takes
him
that from him.
that cite him as an inspiration, because it's like you wouldn't. Oh, really? You wouldn't think maybe that this person, but it's like it's so diverse, the number of people that he's affected. It's
for sure
ubiquitous.
That's a great track.
That's one of my favorite podcast words is ubiquitous. The name of this show is almost, if it's not ubiquitous, it's apocryphal. But I didn't. That would have been a mouth.
The average American's not going to get that.
When I looked into her eyes, they were blue,
No,
but nobody home.
We searched ubiquitous, and I think it was taken.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why we ended up with because I have a tendency to say
That's how she said I do when we got married.
Yeah.
Instead of I do, I said
Like it.
We almost lost it laughing at the altar.
Well, it was pretty freaking cute, you know, because it was like just out of nowhere, but so spontaneous. But all right, Kevin. So we've touched on Ashes to Ashes of that song.
Oh, it's the song on the album everybody knows.
Yeah.
It's the one with the cool video.
Questions on the song. Yeah. I think that song actually represents all of the changes that were going on in Bowie's life at that time. I think that's kind of his explanation to everybody about all of the, getting over the drug abuse and becoming an adult, I think, even, and the changes that happen to a person when so much has happened that it makes you change. And I think that's the period in his life that he was in this, in the way he was making records, in the way that he, the way he, like this album was the first album that he had done in years where he actually composed the music for it, where the albums before it was all improvisation and about being in the moment at the time. And this was more, again, written. It was actually the last album that Tony Visconti did with him also. I think he didn't work for him for like another 20 years after this album. And, that's what I think. I think socially, he was kind of explaining what is, things are changing, something's going on,
Right.
And that would be my viewpoint on it. Yeah.
Okay.
He's got the nod back to Major Tom again from Space
Yeah.
Oddity too.
Right.
Again,
The
he's taking
continuity.
the past and bringing it to the future, and you know,
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
I thought that it was interesting in that a lot of songs will use metaphors for drug abuse and stuff like that. Whereas this was kind of may have been reversal, where it was more explicit about the drug abuse. But when he talks about heaven's high and reaching an all-time low, I'm not sure he's talking about drug abuse there. I think he's talking about ambition or some sort of Major Tom's ambition, basically, to to reach into space, or there's
We know
something
Major
larger
Tom's
than
a junkie.
He's a junkie. Is he a junkie on heroin, or is he a junkie on something else? A higher.
Is he
Where to
switching
get
his
that
high?
smack in space? That's the question.
Yeah, that's a really good point, Phil. I mean, that you are really right about that, man. It is like there's usually metaphors used for drugs. It's using drug as the metaphor, but I think a lot of it has to do with, I agree with everything you said. And I think a lot of it has to do with addiction, but the addiction to fame, the isolation that it causes, being thrust to this level of whatever it is that you are. I mean, think about some of the lines in Space Oddity. They want to know what shirts you wear. I mean, it's dealing with again, fame, out of control, fame that makes you isolated, your addiction to that, all of those things. And it's curious that the line, my mama said to get things done, you better not mess with Major Tom. So the obvious, again, back to your point, good point, is like you think, oh, he's talking about drugs, but maybe his mother is talking about, you don't need all those things to be happy in life, just, get married, have a family, be settled. You don't need these lofty aspirations, but we're addicted to those a lot of times as people. And that's a really good point that he used that as a metaphor. I love that. It was hard to choose between that and Scary Monsters. It's just such a beautifully crafted song. And I think Visconti did such a good job with that piano part. Is so great. And as you guys were touching on earlier, that bass line. And that bass line is so amazing in that song, man.
Yeah, that slap.
So I saw they use a harmonizer, or I read they use a grand piano and a harmonizer to create that sound. It sounded like water.
Yeah,
It sounds like liquid.
He wanted just a song where he wanted a Wurlitzer, but they couldn't get one in time, so they ran the keyboard through like a flange.
Right, a flange. I heard. Yeah, it's trippy sounding. I don't. You guys ever heard that again on another track? That sound. Yeah. I really have
amazing sound. It's incredible.
It is.
And also,
Maybe
this song was inspired by a Danny Kaye song, Inchworm, from the Hans Christian Andersen movie, the nursery rhyme part at the end.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Bowie said that there wouldn't be Ashes to Ashes without Inchworm.
Well, then there's the sad clown, right? The video.
Oh yeah,
he's the clown and the astronaut and the insane asylum resident.
But that Piero is the clown, right?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
That's the famous
Piero.
clown. Yeah.
It kind of foreshadows Black Star. The video for that is kind of blows your mind too.
Cool. Yeah, it's great, man. Yep. But I heard that so that picture of him in the Piero outfit, that's actually not him. It is a mannequin that he was hanging out with this Japanese artist, and they actually created this mannequin of him, and then they dressed the mannequin in the same outfit that he wore in the video.
The album cover,
That
you mean?
explains a lot.
The album cover, yeah, and it's actually a mannequin, and then this photographer.
And then it almost looks like it's hand drawn over too.
It is. And this guy, Brian Duffy, was the guy that took the picture, and he was super pissed because they drew over his picture of the situation. So it's kind of cool, man. I love it. It's such a unique looking album cover, man. It's great.
Yeah.
I thought
Yeah,
I thought
I thought it would be mine, but it wasn't.
Yeah,
But it was for you, right, Aaron?
Yeah, I had it number, it ended up dropping to 4
Did it?
for me. Scary Monsters, Fashion I thought would be lower, but it's just too much of an earworm, man. I just can't keep We Are the Goon Squad and we're coming to town beep beep out of my head. So I had to keep bumping it up.
How big
It's No
did that
Game was my
get?
number 3. It's No Game number 1, and then Ashes to Ashes number 4.
Right. With Fashion, how big did Fashion get? How far did
I don't
that
know.
go?
That's the song that my grown daughter knew, because I
Really?
was singing the beep beep part. She said, "Well, it's from the movie Clueless when she opens up the closet, turn to the left."
Oh, that's right. That's why my wife knew it too. She wasn't like, there it goes. That answers a lot.
That's
What-
why all young people know stuff just from movies.
Yeah.
They get like they'll know Elvis songs. How do you know that? Oh, it's in this movie.
No, it's in Lilo and Stitch. Yeah.
Yeah, right. That's they know it from.
Well, it seems we've transitioned to fashion. I know Lisa loves RuPaul. She went and saw RuPaul's. I thought
Drag Race
RuPaul was
tour.
going to be there, but RuPaul was not there. All the other.
No, it was not Bob the drag queen, but darn, I can't remember.
You
The
can just
one
make
that's
up
always
names, and I
jealous
wouldn't know who
about.
you're talking about, Lisa.
That's okay.
Paul is a great
You
performer.
don't have to. Yeah.
I'd have known RuPaul. I wouldn't know any of the other names you're gonna say.
It's probably not.
RuPaul has sampled Fashion, and actually quite a few other David Bowie songs. Some of them have been used for the lip sync.
Those runway
at the end of the show.
Yeah.
Where the person who goes home has to, two people lip sync, one comes in, two people go in, they lip sync, one comes out. Kind of a deal.
Okay. When I used to wait tables, I used to wait on him. He's the nicest guy. He is like down to earth.
Good. I'm
super
glad.
cool dude. No attitude at all. Just you can tell a lot about people about how they treat waiters.
Definitely can. Yeah.
And I did that gig for until I was 50, and I waited on a lot of people, which I will not mention who or what did what on a podcast, but
Except for RuPaul.
I will mention he was a great guy. Yeah, he was one of the
cool.
So was it mostly Boy Brew you were waiting on, or was it Rue?
Boy Rue. He was completely like manned out. He was wearing a suit, just had his glasses on.
Bald with the glasses, yeah.
Bald with the glasses, just seemed like your average, well-dressed businessman, that totally cool guy, no attitude at all. Just a good guy.
Decent tipper?
Great tipper.
My son Lars digs Bowie and knows this album, but he's too shy to really get on a podcast and talk about it. But he heard a weird sound the other day, and I was playing this album, and he came running in and he said, "Oh, I thought one of the cats was coughing up a hairball, but it's just Fashion." At the beginning, there's that weird.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was originally called Jamaica. It was called Jamaica, right?
Was it?
That was the original working title, like when he was composing it. And that's,
It's
so
a
you
great
can hear
video.
that. You can hear that would fit. But it's funny.
I used some of those moves on stage in the video.
Cool.
You do?
Yeah. I love that video. I love the dancing in it. And
Oh,
so
yeah.
I use a lot of Bowie moves on stage.
But you talking about where he like goes like this and it makes a face?
Oh yeah, there's so many. Or like when he does the one that comes down with the arm like
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
I love.
Oh
stuff
yeah,
like
that's
that.
right. Yeah.
I love
Yeah.
that video is great.
He
Best dancing.
swears it's not
Beep,
about
beep.
fascism. I can't believe that though. I mean, to me, it's so apparently about fascism. I can't
Me
even
too.
imagine
I
being
have that in
about-
my notes, Dean, definitely.
Yeah. We are the Goon Squad. Turn to the left, right? It's like
Well, even the outfits in the video as well, right? There's a lot of those.
yeah.
The fascists. Well, of course, during World War II, it was the Germans and the Japanese and the Italians. So
Right.
a lot of that influences, of course, with the Japanese, right?
Yeah.
So
And then in the early 80s, we kind of knew where our fascism was coming from. Now it's coming from all directions. So it's just
It's hard to
the
escape.
world of fascism.
I think Bowie liked the fashion of fascism, much like Lemmy did as well. Lemmy had all that Nazi memorabilia.
On
but
that
he was
Hugo
not-
Boss. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, Lemmy was not a racist whatsoever, but he loved the fascists.
At the same time, he was doing Young Americans and stuff like that. It was bluesy and definitely, born from the blues. He was dabbling in this Nazi fashion, just like you said. It's common. It was common back then. It's really, I think most of those artists kind of regretted it and everything. But
well, Kiss did the with the lightning bolt S, and then of course when they went to Germany, they couldn't use that. They had to write that. The only time you see Kiss, the logo written with the regular S, is when they play in Germany. But Ace Frehley is the one that came up with that. Paul Stanley said he did, but it's not true. But anyhow, Ace Frehley also would
That checks.
have Nazi memorabilia as well, And then of course Gene and Paul are both Jews.
Right.
So that was always a problem. Yeah.
there was a
But he had a lot. He would spend a lot of money
Wonder
on
why
that
they
stuff.
would object to that.
Oh, Johnny
what are-
Ramone, Johnny
and also
Ramone. I mean,
Gene's, Gene's mom was a Holocaust survivor as well.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But the
They
Nazis
still
were
use those
fashionable
SSSs.
Right? It's interesting, the lightning bolt S.
Yeah.
Do you think that this is a disco song? I mean, is this like Another One Bites the Dust? It's like the alternative. Is it more?
It kind of sounds that way to me. I mean, I wrote a little note that said it's got a disco beat.
Yeah.
And it's fairly simple. With the lyrics, they repeat a little bit, which is not, what Bowie typically does. It's a little more organized, the song. I feel it's, it's the political tone of it, with there's a brand new dance kind of talking about a different type of government maybe, but I don't know its name, that people from bad homes do it or do again and again. It's big and it's bland, full of tension and fear. They do it over there, but we don't do it here.
I love that, man.
It's kind of interesting, turn to the left, turn to the right. And we are the Goon Squad, and we're coming to town. So, and you can read a lot into that.
You can.
It's good lyrics.
Well, anytime you say we don't do this or we don't do that, that's like group speak. I mean, that's definite socialism, fascism.
Yeah, it sure seems like it's in that world, and and I agree with what you guys are saying with that. And it also, to me, it has a lot of Nile Rodgers kind of influence.
Yeah.
It's not on it, and of course, he ends up going to Nile Rodgers for Let's Dance, but I felt like Carlos Alomar was definitely like channeling a lot of that, and I almost feel like when they went in the studio that it was like, hey, let's do some of that, let's get that feel.
Someone mentioned Another One Bites the Dust, which basically rips off Le Chic Freak Out, which is not.
and it's
Uh-huh.
totally that rhythm. You know, it's
Yeah.
it's definitely got those elements, man. Great track.
Well,
Yeah, it's my number 2. I
so
didn't
we're
think it
moving
would
on
be
here.
going in.
Teenage Wildlife. I think, Dean, I think you said you really liked that one. You were conflicted on the ranking that you gave it. So why don't you?
And I think and so was Aaron, right? You
yeah,
were too.
it ended up my number 5. I said it was in the running for number 1. So
Yeah, I was kind of I was that way too, and it ended up being 4 for me. But this is one thing I'd like to say about that. Again, that's Roy Bittan on piano on that, and I think that's the closest thing that he's done to Heroes, other than Heroes, and I love Heroes. But you know, there is something that I think does exist on that song that he's talking about. A lot of people say that he was talking to his earlier self, and sort of giving advice. You know, they wait for me in the hallway, said, well, I don't know about any hallways, you know. So he's saying basically, I hear these people that are ganging up on these young stars. So basically, my 16-year-old told me, we were talking about this song, and he told me that there is numerous, this is shocking to me, not shocking, but I just can't believe it, that there's numerous websites called Countdown to 18, where basically people are like waiting for stars to turn 18 so that they're sexually legal.
that's creepy.
And it's beyond creepy. And I feel like this song is kind of talking about that sort of thing in a way where we exploit our teenagers, you know, man. It's like we consume them and exploit them and put them in these spots where it's like, you know, we set them up like guys like Justin Bieber or Britney Spears or any, you can just go all the way through a litany of these people. We set them up to glorify them and then knock them down.
Well, and then to glorify them sexually too, especially.
That's what I'm saying.
I mean,
yeah.
I read that Gary Newman thought that this song was an attack on him.
Yeah. Well, there was talk about that because Newman was supposedly ripping him off pretty strong during that time.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
I heard a story that and I couldn't verify it. I heard it on a podcast and I couldn't verify it with the podcaster, but because she couldn't remember. But Bowie at one point, his son came and he was going to go to a high school prom or something like that, dressed as Ziggy Stardust, or he was going to dress up in glam, you know, gear and everything. And Bowie turned him around and said, "I'm not letting you go out dressed like that." You know, he was like very, you know, it's like ironic that Bowie would tell his son that he couldn't do this. But and I, you know, I don't know what the moral of the story is, other than maybe
we all grow up.
Bowie later in life, he's like, you know, maybe when I was 16 or 15, whatever, I wouldn't have done some of the things I did, you know, back then. So that's why I
maybe
thought
he wanted him to get something original. That's his shtick.
Yeah, maybe that was it.
Yeah.
Maybe it was copyright infringement.
Jones a huge director now.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah, Duncan Jones. He's a huge director, really big director. So yeah, you know, I mean, that's a great song. I you know, to me, that song is another one of the really masterpieces on the record. And I think we're still doing this and making the same mistakes. And that line, "Same old thing and brand new drag comes sweeping into view."
Yeah.
We've just been doing it forever. You can go back to the 50s and they're doing that with teenagers and
not just teenagers, Milton Berle, Flip Wilson.
Yeah, true.
for whatever reason, it didn't resonate. I had that listed last. And sometimes it's because maybe 4 listens isn't enough or whatever. I mean, it's a strong album, but
It's got the Robert Fripp to it, man. It's going to be in my top.
it did have good guitar
That's
solo.
okay.
I think I held that against it. You know, with all the exotic sounds and everything in this album, I almost held the good guitar playing against it.
That may be my fault too.
The more conventional guitar playing.
How so? What do you mean, man?
Well, I felt like the guitar solo, and I think it seemed like it was so tight. It was so good. It was very good, but it seemed incongruous with a lot of the rest of the album.
You know, that got some people felt that way about it. I had heard that with I read some of the reviews on the album and stuff, and that did come up. And looking back at it, to me, I mean, it was a Fripp Bowie album, and I just, man, like I said, I made it for me. But that song, definitely, I agree, it was one of his best things on that record. Really good.
Yeah.
It's probably a terrible reason.
Yeah, that guitar was probably the reason it was competing for my number one.
Yeah, it's a rocking guitar, man.
But
Doesn't he do different tuning? Do you guys know what tuning he uses?
No, I'm sure. I couldn't tell you.
You do, don't you, man? Doesn't he use some really odd tuning? Not like drop D, not open G.
On one track?
On everything. Fripp? It's called.
I think a lot of what he does is just he has like a bunch of effects and he does like a lot of diminished and augmented stuff. But I don't know what he is. He might have a different tuning.
Hold on, I'm going to look this up. Somebody was telling me about this, and I didn't
He
know.
just loves. It's possible, but a lot of what he does, like just thematically, is always he loves diminished.
Something called New Standard Tuning, NST.
The guitar strings are C, G, D, A, E, and G.
That's what he does all the time, or just for a certain track?
Almost all the time.
Oh, interesting. New standard tuning.
Yeah, it's weird, huh?
The 5 lowest open strings are each tuned to an interval of a perfect fifth. The 2 highest strings are a minor third apart.
So that goes, if you know anything, I don't know, well, I don't want to bore anybody with music theory, but a perfect fifth is the diminished. So if you're doing like a diminished scale, that's the perfect fifth. So he's tuning the guitar like in a diminished scale.
That's a trip. So
that's why it sounds like that when he's
fractured. That's why you think it sounds so fractured?
Yeah, so like if you're an A, the perfect fifth would be E flat, which is a diminished.
Well, I can't wait to do that as soon as we're done.
Unless you're Robert Fripp, I would say probably don't.
Right now.
Yeah, that's kind of interesting. What's it called, Aaron? New standard tuning?
New standard tuning.
Oh, trip out. So it's all perfect fifth.
Yeah.
No,
C, G, D, A, E, G. There it is. All fifths tuning.
All fifths
you learn.
tuning. Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Now I got to read about it.
Ed grew up with this stuff. His dad was a music teacher, so this is like dinner table conversation, right, Ed?
No, not really.
What's the root and the fifth of an E major chord and the root and the fifth of a D chord, or major or minor?
Because I'm looking at it has the new standard, like it has on the. I'm looking at this right here. It has the circle of fifths.
I'm looking at that
too. Yeah.
Exactly.
So it has that, but with new standard circle of fifths. So like that's interesting. That's fascinating.
All fifths tuning is typically used for mandolins, cellos, violas, and violins. On a guitar, tuning the strings in fifths would mean that first string would be a high B.
Interesting.
See, guys, this is just the kind of useless shit you get to learn when you're hanging out.
Yeah, when you've been a musician your whole life.
Yeah, that'll be our TikTok. Music theory.
Yeah.
Music theory 101.
This is why our wives sprint from the room when the 4 of us are together.
It's generally always like weird guys at the name show. Right.
Sorry, Lisa.
It's okay.
Should we move on to Scream Like a Baby?
Let's do that.
Move away from music theory.
Lisa, why don't you give your impressions? Because I don't think your impressions were that great at this song.
Robert Fripp's not on this one.
I didn't love this one. Was that my last or my next to last?
I didn't get your rankings.
Oh, it was your last.
Yeah, it's my last. It just felt, I don't know. I didn't like the way it felt.
Check Facebook Messenger, Aaron.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. There's a lot of notes here, like apparently Susie from the Banshees. Okay, I'm just gonna say this. One of the things it says is fascism is another prevalent theme, which is similar to like what was going on with Susie. Could it be pointed at American society? But I feel like that might be something of an American like conceitism, because there was a whole lot more fascism over in Europe. And technically speaking, while it was very fascist feeling, Reaganism was not considered fascism, at least not, by the political norms.
Right.
Yeah.
So
why did the hit last for you, Lisa? Like, what aspect of it was it musically you didn't dig it, or
the spookiness was actually good for me, but I just didn't care for the feel overall. I can't really. I have a tendency to react to songs and music on an emotional level, period. So when I hear it, it's like something in it didn't jive with me. It may be that it hit me in a negative way sound wise, because
Usually
I do
for
have
you,
that
it's all about
ADD
lyrics,
sound
right?
sensitivity. Well, yeah, that too. Not really. No, because half the time I don't know what the lyrics are because I can't tell what they're saying.
I think the lyrics in this are pretty great. I again think, like you were saying, the fascist thing is definitely coming up, and I do know what you're saying in terms of fascism being more prevalent. Certainly at that time, with obviously, good old Mussolini and Hitler and Franco and Spain. I mean, it was definitely happening there. But people forget in 1939, over 20,000 people gathered together in Madison Square Garden. Some nice little Nazis and fascists, gathered there, man. And Chicago, Illinois, obviously has had its and please don't anybody from Chicago or Illinois, because I live there. I love Chicago and Illinois. But I'm just saying, we have had fascists all over the place. And I do think this like in terms of being a teenager and it's really unspecified what Sam was. Sam was a gun. That's what he says in it. What does that mean? Is Sam a revolutionary? Was Sam a young gay man? Was Sam,
Uncle Sam?
Could be. I thought about that too, Lisa. Like what's he talking about with Sam there? But one thing we know is Sam gets exterminated at the end of it. And then when he says, I'm trying to be part of society, and he can't get it out, he's going like, society.
Yeah.
It's great. I mean, it's
I love that part.
Cool, man, and
I never knew his last name. We never had any fun.
Exactly. Yeah, I dug it. I think it's a super cool song, but I could see my wife, there's some songs in this album that when they come on, my wife is just like, and she likes Bowie, but this is one that's a little bit too for her.
It just I'm really didn't get a chance to actually read the lyrics, Aaron. So I will say that much. It may have been lyrically, I might have enjoyed it more, but I have a tendency to have an initial emotional reaction to the music, and that's what most of my that's what my rankings were today.
I had it ranked 6th. It kind of reminded me a little bit of a John Cale song called "Gun," and it also humanized the firearm. Susie remade that later in their career.
Well, that's interesting. Bowie was definitely Velvet Underground influenced and stuff. Do you think maybe he was making that?
Like his Susie and the Cure and all those people talk about Bowie being an inspiration. Velvet Underground.
Both.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
and Jean-Paul Sartre and Camus for the Cure, man.
Right. All right. Well, let's move ahead. Who is not led off with their comments? Maybe that would be Aaron. Kingdom Come.
Kingdom Come. That was my second to last ranked song, but I do like the continuity of breaking rocks. You're throwing rocks in the street and they break, and it's no game. And now he won't be breaking no rocks. Not exactly sure what it means. And yeah, just musically,
Gang.
it didn't have the Fripp.
Prison, chain gang.
Didn't have the Fripp. He's incarcerated, obviously, right? I mean, at least that's the literal implication.
Yeah, breaking rocks.
Supposedly Verlaine wanted it to be, it was sort of like a comment on the working man, you know, like working, struggling to work, being promised something that's better that never really materializes. I don't like the song, man. I mean, I like I said, I have never liked it. And I did not realize that he didn't write it. So I don't know. It lacks something. It sort of has, don't you guys feel like it has kind of a Motown feeling in the beginning of it too, kind of?
Yeah.
That boom, you know, it's got that kind of I don't know. It's just none of it I like.
Smokey and the Miracles kind of thing going.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know. It just was one that doesn't grab me on it.
See, now that I liked, that part I would have liked.
Okay. So you know
that's what I was raised on.
Right, Lisa, I think you and my wife, you guys gotta hang, because I mean, you guys have very similar taste on stuff. She would probably feel the same way.
We'll have to meet up with you guys if we make it to Chicago anytime soon.
He's in LA.
Oh,
Yeah.
I thought you were in Chicago.
No.
I lived in Chicago.
Oh, okay.
Lived in Chicago.
Well, that
Right.
makes it even better because we can visit Aaron too.
There you go.
There you go. Visit all the Cobras.
Who's gonna put us up for a week?
An invitation. At
We'll
least
travel
Cobra
with
Mansion.
our laptops and broadcast.
Yeah.
But I feel like the second half of the album, even though it was a really strong album overall, I feel like there's a clear delineation for me. The first half of the album,
Yeah, I agree.
like dynamite. The second half, it gradual. I mean, there's good songs on the second side, but this is an example of one that makes the second side a little bit lesser.
Yeah, I think Teenage Wildlife and It's No Game #2 are definitely the highlights of side 2.
Agreed. I love the whole deal except for
Yeah, I mean so many of them are close together that, you know.
Yeah, exactly. I say, what about Because You're Young?
This is a one happy, dead or alive. There's no back to front and no sides. These pieces are broken. These pieces are broken.
Take it away.
I loved it. They said, you know, to me, it's like this. It's a beautiful song. I mean, it's sort of like the world weary David Bowie giving advice to young lovers, and you know, isn't that nice that you're having this, but it's going to get ugly fast. You know, it's a guy that's just coming off of a divorce and a messy custody battle to get his son, and then grumpy Pete Townsend showed up, and
Yeah.
But I think it's a beautiful song. I love it. I really, you know, and I love that line, a million dreams, a million scars. It's still not jaded, but it's definitely worldly wise. And I appreciate that about it. So I dug it. What'd you guys think?
Well, you know, Bowie has this reputation of being like the biggest party animal, with, you know, do any drug, sleep with anybody. You know, and he's got this reputation, but I've read
Stop that at some
from
point.
his ex-wife Angela and other women that he was a great father, that he was like a very patient father, really devoted time to him, to his kids, and that he was, and so that's what I thought of mostly when I heard this one. I didn't know, you know, I knew Pete Townsend played on it. I didn't know he had such a bad attitude about it. That's funny.
A couple of things. Yeah, they're like, oh, Pete, sorry to wake you up. You know,
but he's been known. Yeah, you're right. He's been known to be kind of cantankerous,
irascible.
You know. Yeah,
irascible and cantankerous. Look at those two good ones.
Yeah,
For sure.
And an avid consumer of child porn, if I remember.
Oh, I
right.
hope that's not true. Do you think it is?
I hope not.
I hope not. I remember that at the time, though. He said that he was part of an investigative team or something.
Yeah.
I don't think so.
Because I'm a huge fan. That would be heartbreaking.
I love the hoop, but yeah.
I know he's gotten his face beat in a few times by Roger Daltrey. He's like half his height, but I would not mess with Roger Daltrey. He's like,
yeah, Roger Daltrey was like a what would you call that in England? It's like he'd go into a
Roller.
barn, clear out a bar, and his dad was like a wrestler or something, or boxer, and he was just like he had a history of fighting, didn't he?
Tony's a big
Pugilist. There's a word for you.
Pugilist. There's another word. Yeah, there's another word. Pugilist.
We've been known to read a book or two.
I think the guy in England's
Not
called
fighting.
they call him a bruiser. I
A
believe.
bruiser.
Yeah.
Tony's got some good Who stories. He's
Yeah.
definitely into the Who.
Yeah, great band, great songwriters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so that kind of gets us down to the last song on the album.
It's No Game number
It's
2.
been a fun ride, but we're finally to the last stop.
Big heads and drums, full speed and pagan, and it's no game.
And it sounds a lot like the first stop. Except
Very
Less screaming.
Like the different
Yes.
stuff. Yeah.
Which is why it got my number 1.
yeah. So
Yeah, you had It's No Game number 2, number 1, and It's No Game number 1, number 2.
perfect.
There you go.
But
Great
I've read
song.
this and I agree with it. Don't you think that maybe the original It's a Game number 1 is more discontented, more plaintive, more darker in general, whereas It's No Game number 2 seems to be more contented, more resigned to his fate,
Accepting, not
Yeah.
resigned.
accepting.
He's just tired or
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, there you are.
It's a more pensive look at the same subject. It seems more pensive though.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree.
like the time of the album is past and now he's still angry but not as screaming angry as he was in the beginning.
Exactly.
The maturity.
Agreed.
So yeah, there it is. There it is. Scary Monsters, Super Creeps.
Mhm.
All right, are we ready to hear what came out, how we ranked them?
Yeah, let's get that banger.
We ended up with a tie for the banger, but yeah, we have a tie, so we
Oh.
might have to have the other three weigh in on which one's going to win.
Oh, good tiebreaker. Here we go. What is it?
Ashes to Ashes, and It's No Game number 1.
Wow.
What do you think, guys? How you breaking that?
I'm
up?
going Ashes to Ashes.
Ashes to Ashes, definitely.
All right.
Ashes to Ashes.
Well, that their song right there is a real banger.
It's a banger.
It's a banger.
It's a banger.
It's
There it is.
unanimous,
Yeah,
and it's
all right.
alphabetically first, so it's in the right order.
Yeah.
All right.
And Dean had Ashes
yeah.
to Ashes is number 1, so we know it is.
Yeah.
As
So did you,
Philip.
Phil? Didn't you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's Ashes to Ashes 1, It's No Game number 1, 2, Scary Monsters and Super Creeps 3, Fashion number 4. We're almost going in the album order. Up the Hill Backwards number 5, It's No Game number 2, number 6, Teenage Wildlife 7, Because You're Young 8, Scream Like a Baby 9, and Kingdom Come 10 by a lot.
Yes.
Yes.
Bury that.
Exactly.
That's the one we would like if
Yeah.
kick it off your mixtape. That would be the one you
We
would take
were
off.
gonna add that as a category. Which song would you, if you had to get rid of a song, which one would it be? But then
We
that's
did
really
the first couple
the
of
lowest ranked song, I guess.
the first 1 or 2 we did ask that question, and then it just
Well, then it got to be the.
fell away.
Why are we wasting time talking about the worst song on the album? Let's when we can talk about the best song.
Or shitting on the album in some way.
Yeah,
If you had to remove one song, which one would it be?
there you go.
It was the question.
Gotta be. Absolutely. No doubt.
All right.
No doubt.
So
Well,
as we
we've
wind
enjoyed-
down here, do we? I'm sorry, Dean. Go ahead.
So we've enjoyed being here with you guys. When you guys come out, we love to see you. We've gotten a chance to see Aaron a couple times. It's been really good to have
Yeah.
him around. And
Hope to see you guys out again.
yeah, we got a busy October coming up. We're doing a benefit for Alzheimer's on Thursday, October 12th. It's a car show, and then we're doing another car show. It's another charity event Saturday, October 14th in the morning at 9 a.m. And we're double dipping. We're going to be at the Thunderfest in Covina for another car show. This time there's no charity involved with that. Just rocking out. And then we're going to be in Las Vegas November 1st. We're playing
that's at the Sphere, right?
Yeah. Well, we're going to be at the SEMA convention, which is actually it's a pretty big thing. And we're going to we're playing, but we're going to be the Orleans. So we're doing the thing for a company called Kicker. So we're keeping busy, and we're going to be out there. So, if anybody's around Southern California.
So Bono's hold on the Sphere is safe for now.
It's safe.
We definitely can't travel this year, but maybe for the 3rd annual Smokin Cobras album review.
Yeah.
Next
Maybe we
year.
can do it in person.
Yeah.
Maybe we can do some shows out in your neck of the woods.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Right around my birthday. Yeah, we'd love to see you.
You're some of our favorite guests.
Yes,
so
absolutely.
We don't want to wear out our welcome or wear out our
goodwill.
But we'd love to have you guys on.
Love you guys.
Yeah,
social.
Twitter.
Yeah, pod.
Instagram.
Yeah, pod.
Facebook.
Yeah, pod. So let us know. Hit us back. Have a great week.